Much of life is suffering and toil, but that does not mean that we have to be insufferable. That does not mean that we have to be toilsome. Welcome to Strip Cover Lit, where literature lives. I am coming to you today from a very strange place, and that is the reason that I have selected this poem. That is the reason that we will have the talking points that we have. So, I suppose let's just get into it. This is a very extensive poem, very long poem, but we will endure. A Servant to Servants by Robert Frost. I didn't make you know how glad I was to have you come and camp here on our land. I promised myself to get down some day and see the way you lived, but I don't know. With a house full of hungry men to feed, I guess you'd find, it seems to me, I can't express my feelings any more than I can raise my voice or want to lift my hand. Oh, I can lift it when I have to. Did you ever feel so? I hope you never. It's got so I don't even know for sure whether I am glad, sorry, or anything. There's nothing but a voice, like left inside, that seems to tell me how I ought to feel. And I would feel it, and I would feel if I wasn't all gone wrong. You take the lake. I look and look at it. I see its fair, pretty sheet of water. I stand and make myself repeat out loud the advantages it has, so long and narrow, like a deep piece of some old running river cut short off at both ends. It lies 5 miles straight away through the mountain notch from the sink window where I wash the plates. And all our storms come up toward the house, drawing the slow waves whiter and whiter and whiter. It took my mind off doughnuts and soda biscuits to step outdoors and take the water dazzle, a sunny morning, or take a rising wind about my face and body and through my wrapper when a storm threatened from the dragon's den and a cold chill shivered across the lake. I see its fair, pretty sheet of water, our Willoughby. How did you hear of it? I expect, though everyone's heard of it. In a book about ferns? Listen to that. You let things more like feathers regulate your going and coming, and you like it here? I can see how you might, but I don't know. It would be different if more people came, for then there would be business. As it is, the cottages Lynn built, sometimes we rent them, sometimes we don't. We've a good piece of shore that ought to be worth something and may yet, but I don't count on it as much as Lynn. He looks on the bright side of everything, including me. He thinks I'll be all right with doctoring, but it's not medicine. Lowe is the only doctor dared to say so. It's a rest. It's rest I want. There, I have said it out. From cooking meals for hungry hired men and washing dishes after them, from doing things over and over that just won't stay done. By good rights I ought not to have so much put on me, but there seems no other way. Lynn says one steady pull more ought to do it. He says the best way out is always through, and I agree to that, or in so far as I can see no other way out but through, leastways for me. And then they'll be convinced it's not that Lynn don't want the best for me. It was his plan, our moving over in beside the lake from where that day I showed you we used to live 10 miles from anywhere. We didn't change without some sacrifice, but Lynn went at it to make up the loss. His work's a man's, of course, from sun to sun. But he works when he works as hard as I do, though there's small profit in comparisons. Women and men will make them all the same. But work ain't all. Lynn undertakes too much. He's into everything in town. This year it's highways, and he's got too many men around him to look after that make waste. They take advantage of him shamefully, and proud, too, of themselves for doing so. We have 4 here to board, great good-for-nothings, sprawling about the kitchen with their talk, while I fry their bacon. Much they care. No more put out in what they do or say than if I wasn't in the room at all. Coming and going all the time they are. I don't learn what all their names are, let alone their characters, or whether they are safe to have inside the house with doors unlocked. I'm not afraid of them, though, if they're not afraid of me. There's 2 can play that. I have my fancies. It runs in the family. My father's brother wasn't right. They kept him locked up for a few years back there at the old farm. I've been away once. Yes, I've been away. The state asylum. I was prejudiced. I wouldn't have sent any one of mine there. You know the old idea. The only asylum was the poorhouse, and those who could afford, rather than send their folks to such a place, kept them at home. And it does seem more human. But it's not so. The place is the asylum. There they have every means proper to do with, and you aren't darkening other people's lives worse than no good to them. And they no good to you in your condition. You can't know affection or the want of it in that state. I've heard too much of the old-fashioned way. My father's brother, he went mad quite young. Some thought he had been bitten by a dog because his violence took on the form of carrying his pillow in his teeth, but it's more likely he was crossed in love. Or so the story goes. It was some girl. Anyway, all he talked about was love. They soon saw he would do someone a mischief if he wasn't kept strict watch of, and it ended in father's building him a sort of cage, or room within a room, of hickory poles, like stanchions in the barn, from floor to ceiling, a narrow passage all the way around. Anything they put in for furniture he'd tear to pieces, even a bed to lie on. So they made the place comfortable with straw, like a beast's stall, to ease their consciences. Of course, they had to feed him without dishes. They tried to keep him clothed, but he paraded with his clothes on his arm, all of his clothes. Cruel it sounds. I suppose they did the best they knew. And just when he was at the height, father and mother married, and mother came a bride to help take care of such a creature and accommodate her young life to his. That was what marrying father meant to her. She had to lie and hear love things made dreadful by his shouts in the nights. He'd shout and shout until the strength was shouted out of him, and his voice died down slowly from exhaustion. He'd pull his bars apart like bow and bowstring, and let them go and make them twang until his hands had worn them smooth as any ox bow. And then he'd crow, as if he thought that child's play the only fun he had. I've heard them say, though, they found a way to put a stop to it. He was before my time, I never saw him. But the pen stayed exactly as it was. There in the upper chamber in the L, a sort of catch-all, full of attic clutter. I often think of the smooth hickory bars that got so I would say, you know, half fooling, it's time I took my turn upstairs in jail. Just as you will till it becomes a habit. No wonder I was glad to get away. Mind you, I waited till Lynn said the word. I didn't want the blame if things went wrong. I was glad, though, no end. When we moved out, and I looked to be happy, and I was, as I said, for a while. But I don't know. Somehow the change wore out like a prescription, and there's more to it than just window views and living by a lake. I'm past such help. Unless Lynn took the notion, which he won't, and I won't ask him. It's not sure enough, I suppose. I've got to go to the road. I'm going. Other folks have to, and why shouldn't I? I almost think if I could do like you, drop everything and live out on the ground, but it might be, come night, I shouldn't like it, or a long rain. I should soon get enough, and be glad of a good roof overhead. I've lain awake thinking of you, I'll warrant, more than you have yourself some of these nights. The wonder was the tents weren't snatched away from over you as you lay in your beds. I haven't courage for a risk like that. Bless you, of course. You're keeping me from work, but the thing of it is, I need to be kept. There's work enough to do, there's always that. But behind's behind. The worst you can do is set me back a little while more behind. I shan't catch up in this world anyway. I'd rather you'd not go unless you must. So the speaker in this poem is someone who is quite unimpressed with life, someone who does not like the way that her life is going. She left a calamitous home life into which she was born, into a marriage that does not seem loveless, but seems lackluster. I think we could say it that way, lackluster as opposed to loveless. There are a lot of interpretations of this poem. Basically, everyone you will find that says loveless, a loveless marriage. I don't see that here. I see Lynn struggling to provided a house, provided a homestead, struggling to provide the emotional necessities for his wife. That seems certain. I'm a little distracted. There was a calamity in my life recently that I think I could have stopped. Someone was murdered, and I had failed to act on this prior. And I'm carrying that very hard right now, very heavy on my shoulders right now. I am struggling right now with that. I could have done something, I did not. I was walking through the lackluster nature of my life from day to day, my head down, bowed in capitulation to the emotional doldrums of the day to day. And in the moment, months ago, where I could have acted, it would have been very bold. It would have had pretty severe consequences for myself. I did not. And those consequences came back on someone else today. And they lost their life. And I had lived very much like the woman in this poem. Just sort of existing. Never really enjoying. Here's the question. We can look at the speaker in this poem as if she is a victim. This lackluster marriage. What in the hell is she doing to put the luster into that marriage? What was I doing to put the luster into my life? What was I doing to live the life I have? What is she doing to live the life she has? Her life is toilsome. All of our lives are toilsome at some point. Some of our lives are toilsome most of the time. There has to be something within us that makes that meaning sing. There has to be something inside of us to tease out the worth and the merit and the value to the day to day. The speaker in this poem is always talked about. All of the times I've seen this poem talked about, all the times I've heard this poem talked about, spoken about in this sort of braying manner. But it seems to me that the speaker in this poem is doing nothing to really take the burden of enjoyment for her life to herself. We cannot be passive in our life. We cannot be passive in the day-to-day. We cannot be passive in the moment-to-moment. Bowing down. We have to stand. We have to find meaning. I've talked a lot on this channel the past few years as this has occurred to me and built in my own life. You have your job and you have your work. For some of us, they're the same. Maybe you're a worldwide renowned author and your work is the job that you have. You get paid for your work. How do I dichotomize these terms? Your job gets you paid. Your work finds you meaning. There's dignity in your job. There is meaning in your work. Our speaker here seems to have a job. Our speaker here seems to know work. Our speaker here finds that dignity in her job. Very good at that. Very, very good at that. The meaning of our speaker's work is lost because our speaker does not seem to have work. Our speaker seems to have simply a job. For me, the only way that I know how to illustrate this, I have a 9-to-5. That's my job. That's where I have dignity. I go to work. I do the best job that I can squeeze through the morsel of my being, and I get paid for it. I work retail. I stock a lot of shelves, and people get to come in and buy their toilet paper and their food and their cough and cold medicine, their detergent. A lot of times they just steal it instead. That's dignity. That's dignified. I come home and I do this. I talk about literature. That's where I find my meaning. Our speaker here does not have that meaning-finding apparatus. Our speaker here has the dignity without the meaning. Do you have dignity and meaning? Do these things both occur in your life? If not, I suggest it. Because without meaning, it's very easy to talk us into doing stupid things. Without meaning, we assume, I think, it seems, no meaning in the life of someone else. And so, when the moment comes where we might strike them down, maybe we do because there's no meaning to it anyway. They call that nihilism. That's not 100% correct. That's what's known as weak nihilism. I'm currently working on a full-length review for The Call of Cthulhu. This is something that I outline in there. There is strong nihilism and there is weak nihilism. Weak nihilism came really post-World War I, especially post-World War II. Strong nihilism was the original nihilism. Strong nihilism, there's a quote from a man named Dmitry Pisarev. I did not know I was going to be talking about this, or I would have pulled the quote up. It goes something like this. About nihilism, the ultimatum of our camp is to strike out right and strike out left, and what will fall to smithereens, is no good. What will withstand the blow is good. And if it is good, we can keep it with us. We can take it with us. That's what nihilism says. Nihilism says take nothing for granted. Nihilism says not that there is no meaning. Nihilism says that nothing has inherent meaning. Nihilism says that just because someone told you something is meaningful does not mean that it has to be meaningful to you. Nihilism says maybe you are stuck in some place without meaning. Our speaker here is stuck in some place without meaning. That does not mean that she cannot find meaning. That does not mean that she cannot build, create, manifest, manufacture meaning, because indeed she can. Meaning is very important, I think. You can have dignity with no meaning, like the speaker in this poem. You can have meaning with no dignity. How many of the quote-unquote starving artists are that way? They do not get paid for their work, but still they create it. That is their meaning. They do not find dignity because there is no job there. Does not mean they are worth less. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that dignity is something that has to be defined, just like meaning. But if you can find some way to have both dignity and meaning, it will not fix all of the problems in your life, but it will allow you to find the energy necessary to work on those problems. And that, I think, is all that we can ask. That's all I have for this video. If you like or appreciate what I do here, hitting the like button really does help me out, and I hope to have you back for the next one.